Turok the Dinosaur Hunter is a first-person shooter originally developed for the Nintendo 64 by Iguana Entertainment in 1997, and also ported to Microsoft Windows the same year. You take on the role of Tal Set, a time-traveling warrior whose quest is to stop an evil alien known as the Campaigner from acquiring a weapon known as the Chronoscepter, which he obviously wants to rule the universe, but mostly for the fact that he's just an asshole. So Tal Set sets off on his quest, killing every living and breathing organism that gets in his way as he travels to the Campaigner's mothership. The game is broken up into 8 levels, during which you're required to find keys to access the subsequent levels, as well as recovering a single piece of the Chronoscepter. Initially the keys are quite easy to find, but the further you get into the game, the keys end up getting put in some out-of-the-way places and you'll have to do some serious searching to find them. Turok has the honour of being one of the first shooting games to get out of the cramped confines of corridors and put you into some truly large environments. Each level has something of its own theme, whether it be cliffside villages or the endless maze-like workings of the catacombs. As you progress, you also gain access to deadlier weapons, but also come up against deadlier enemies as well. Most of the enemies are keeping in tune with the game's dinosaur and jungle theme, so you can expect to see tribal-looking guys with blow darts and spears, as well as dinosaurs and giant dragonflies. You also have to deal with poachers. These are guys with similar weapons to Tal Set, like assault rifles and shotguns. For the time, these enemies are very well animated, with some humorous death animations that are way over the top, keeping things in line with the game's comical roots. I particularly like the way that some enemies cough and gurgle blood when they die, and the way the alien enemies self-destruct, blowing themselves to Kingdom Come. It seems like every level has something new to catch you off guard, whether it be a fully armoured Triceratops with rocket launchers, or giant crabs that pop up in the sewers of the last few areas of the game. Added in at the end of a few levels is an end-level boss, though they're not too difficult and just require near constant circle strafing and lots of ammo to put down, which is always in plentiful supply. I look at Turok as a really early example of gun porn, and some of the weapons are still good fun to use even to this day. The automatic shotgun is pure awesome, and I'm also fond of the pulse rifle and Turok's recurve bow. It's not a terribly difficult game when you break it down. I mean, certain endgame enemies admittedly hit pretty damn hard, but it's really a matter of learning their attack patterns and staying the hell out of their way. Once you get familiar with the enemy types, it's pretty much a breeze. The real thing that's going to stump players is all the various platforming sections, which are just downright sadistic. These are hard enough with a mouse and keyboard setup, and I can't even begin to imagine how people got past these using a Nintendo 64 controller. They usually involve jumping from platform to platform over bottomless pits, and one false move or a misjudged landing will inevitably result in death and the loss of a life. In a few of the later levels, you have to jump up to over half a dozen at a time without any breathers, and it's really nail-biting stuff, but not in a good way. I don't think there's any ifs or buts about this kind of thing, it just blows. There's no two ways about it. Turok uses a checkpoint and manual save system combined with giving the player a finite amount of lives, which is cool and all. I mean, that was pretty standard back then, but there's really only 2 or 3 save points per level, and these can be sporadically placed, making certain areas much too difficult. You'll probably end up replaying a few areas over and over, which can be frustrating. Turok is a console game first and foremost. It was made for the Nintendo 64 and it shows. There were a lot of games being made for the console at the time that had some big issues with draw distance and tried to hide it by throwing fog into the levels. Turok is one of those games. It doesn't affect things too adversely. Usually you can see far enough ahead of you to see what's coming, but it does mean that it can be really hard to get your bearings. What few landmarks there are in levels are hidden behind walls of fog that only evaporate when you're standing right in front of them. You're often required to make large drops to platforms off the edges of cliffs, and it can be hard to spot them and plan your jump sometimes. You'd kind of expect the PC version to remove these limitations, but unfortunately it suffers from it just the same. Likewise, the sound design is pretty basic. I've even had a few bugs where the sound just cuts out entirely, and I've had to restart the game to get it working again. Another problem is that a lot of the levels have these sort of point of no return areas. Usually when you drop off a ledge or go through some sort of one-way portal. and if you've missed one of the keys or a piece of the Chronoscepter, the only way to go back and get it is to finish the level and then replay it all over again. And that sucks. It does end up being something of a chore when you're walking around for what seems like an eternity looking for a hidden door or a switch that might unlock the area to the last item that you're looking for. Though these kind of gameplay mechanics seem almost intentional, like it was a way for the developers to ensure players got the most game time out of the experience, and I'm not even sure if you can really knock it for that. It's a shame no one's tried to release some sort of high definition update for Turok, but still, it's a surprisingly easy game to get running on modern systems. All you really need is the N-Glide driver to support Voodoo games and you're good to go. With a modern keyboard and mouse setup, the game controls like a modern shooter and is simple enough to pick up and play. If you're going to try Turok out, just keep in mind that this is a game that definitely showed its age, but it's also a game that's still got a lot of charm. And it is probably worth playing just to see how much the industry has changed, and also to see one of the earliest examples of console shooters done properly.